Teen girl gives birth inside school. This story is very good. Everyone should listen. The sound of sneakers squeaking against the polished gym floor echoed in the large hall, accompanied by the rhythmic thuds of a bouncing tennis ball. Jana took a deep breath, sweat trickling down her temple as she prepared to serve. The championship match was just a week away, and every point, every move mattered. Focus. Jana, Coach Ben barked from the sidelines. You're slacking. Jana tightened her grip on the racket, her stomach twisting into knots. It wasn't just the pressure of the game. There was something wrong. Something inside her body felt off. She had been feeling strange for weeks now, lightheaded during practice, queasy in the mornings, but she had pushed through. She had to. A full-ride scholarship to UCLA was on the line. She couldn't afford to be weak. She tossed the ball into the air, swinging her racket with precision. The impact sent the ball flying across the net, but before she could reposition herself, her vision blurred. The world tilted sideways. She gasped, the sound of her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Her knees buckled. Jana! The racket slipped from her fingers and she collapsed onto the court. Gasps filled the gym. Teammates rushed toward her, their voices blending into a haze. Layla, her best friend, knelt beside her, shaking her shoulder. Jana, are you okay? Jana wanted to answer, but the nausea was unbearable. She turned her head just in time, retching onto the floor. A chorus of disgusted gasps rose from the bystanders. Gross, someone muttered. Maybe she's pregnant, Haley sneered, her voice dripping with fake concern. Wouldn't that be scandalous? Jana's stomach clenched, but not because of the nausea. The words hit her harder than any serve she had ever taken to the body. Pregnant? Number impossible. Or was it? Coach Ben helped her sit up, his expression unreadable. Jana, if you're not well, you need to get checked out. I can't have you collapsing in the middle of practice. Jana nodded, swallowing the bile in her throat. I'm fine, just dizzy. Layla exchanged a worried glance with her. Come on, I'll take you to the nurse's office. Jana wanted to protest, to insist she was just overworked, but the pounding in her head was unbearable. She let Layla pull her to her feet and guide her out of the gym, ignoring the hushed whispers and stares from her teammates. As they walked down the empty hallway, Layla hesitated before speaking. Jana, when was the last time you had your period? Jana felt her heart skip a beat. I don't know. A couple of months ago? But that's normal for me. Training so hard messes up my cycle. Layla bit her lip. Yeah, but maybe you should take a test, just to be sure. Jana's breath hitched. The idea seemed ridiculous, absurd. But deep inside, a tiny voice whispered a terrifying truth. What if Haley was right? Jana stared at the 2 pink lines on the test, her hands trembling so violently she almost dropped it. The bathroom stall felt suffocating, the walls pressing in on her. This couldn't be happening. She was Jana Jones, star athlete, straight-A student, UCLA's future pride. She wasn't supposed to be pregnant. The door suddenly swung open and Layla poked her head inside. Well, what does it say? Jana couldn't speak. She just held up the test with shaking fingers. Layla's eyes widened. Oh my God! Jana let out a strangled laugh, one that quickly turned into a sob. What am I going to do? Layla stepped inside, locking the stall behind her. Okay, let's think. Are you sure it's Alex's? Jana shot her a glare. Of course it's Alex's. Do you think She stopped herself, pressing her hands against her face. This is a nightmare. Layla squeezed her arm. We'll figure this out. You don't have to do this alone. Jana wished she could believe that. That night, she sat in her room, staring at her phone. Her finger hovered over Alex's contact. She hadn't spoken to him in weeks, not since their messy breakup. He had ghosted her, moving on like she was just another girl in his long line of conquests. But he deserved to know. Before she could second-guess herself, she pressed the call button. It rang and rang, until finally, Yo, it's Alex. Don't leave a message. I won't listen to it. The voicemail clicked off. Jana's stomach twisted. She gripped her phone tighter, her jaw clenching. Fine. If he wouldn't pick up, she'd tell him in person. Jana spotted Alex in the school parking lot the next morning, laughing with his friends. The sight made her stomach churn. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage, and walked straight up to him. Alex, we need to talk. He barely spared her a glance. Not now, Jana. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to face her. Now, his friends snickered. Ooh, looks like someone's in trouble, one of them teased. Alex sighed dramatically. Fine. What's so important? Jana swallowed the lump in her throat. I'm pregnant. Silence, then laughter. Wait! Alex smirked. Are you serious? Jana's fingers curled into fists. Do I look like I'm joking? His smirk faded, but there was no panic, no remorse in his eyes, just indifference. Well, that's your problem. Jana's breath caught. Our problem, Alex, he shrugged. I don't know what you expect me to do. I mean, it's not like we were exclusive or anything. Something inside Jana snapped. Are you kidding me? We were together for months. Alex's friends whistled. Damn, dude, you really knocked her up. One of them laughed. Alex chuckled, his expression turning cold. Look, whatever you decide to do with it, that's on you. I'm not playing daddy. Jana's vision blurred with fury and heartbreak. She wanted to scream, to punch him, to make him understand the weight of what he had just said, but she knew it was useless. Alex had already washed his hands of this, of her, of their baby, and she was truly, completely alone. Jana stood there, feeling like the world had just collapsed around her. The laughter of Alex's friends echoed in her ears, each sound like a sharp dagger piercing her chest. Her fingers trembled. Her breath came in ragged gasps, but she refused to let the tears fall. Not here, not in front of him. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked away, her entire body shaking with rage and devastation. Layla was waiting for her near the school entrance, watching everything unfold with wide, horrified eyes. He's a coward, Layla spat as soon as Jana reached her. A pathetic, spineless coward. Jana let out a bitter laugh. Tell me something I don't know. Layla grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the parking lot. Come on, we're leaving. I have class. Screw class, Jana. You just got hit by a train wreck and you think algebra is your biggest problem right now? Layla unlocked her car, practically shoving Jana into the passenger seat. We're going to figure this out, together. Jana sank into the seat, staring blankly ahead as Layla drove. She didn't even ask where they were going. She didn't care. All she could hear were Alex's words repeating in her head. Whatever you decide to do with it, that's on you. I'm not playing, Daddy. Jana pressed her hands against her stomach, her mind racing. This was real, too real, and now she had to make a choice. They ended up at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, one that Layla's older sister worked at. It was quiet, nearly empty, which was exactly what Jana needed. She wrapped her hands around a cup of tea, staring at the steam swirling into the air. Layla sat across from her, watching carefully. So, what now? Jana let out a shaky breath. I don't know, Layla frowned. Are you thinking about keeping it? Jana didn't answer right away. She hadn't even let herself process that part yet. I don't know, she repeated. Layla sighed, running a hand through her hair. Whatever you decide, I'm here. And you should talk to your parents. Maybe... No. Jana's voice was sharp. Final. I can't. Layla's expression darkened. Jana, you have to tell them. They'll kill me. Layla softened. Okay, maybe not kill you, but, aggressively disappoint you. Jana shook her head, gripping the warm ceramic of the teacup. My mom is counting on me to be the first one in the family to go to college. She brags about me to everyone. My dad works 2 jobs just to make sure I have everything I need. If they find out about this, her voice broke, they won't look at me the same. Layla reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Then I'll be here. Whatever happens, you're not alone. Jana swallowed back the tears burning in her eyes, but deep down, she wasn't sure she believed it. That night, Jana lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind restless. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand. She grabbed it, expecting another text from Layla. But it wasn't. It was an unknown number. You need to be careful. Some people don't want you to keep that baby. Jana sat up straight, her heart slamming against her ribs. A chill crept up her spine as she reread the message. What the hell? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she tried to think of a response. But before she could type anything, another message came in. They're watching you. A noise outside her window made her freeze. Slowly, she turned her head, her breath caught in her throat. A figure stood outside, just watching. Her phone slipped from her fingers, a shudder running through her entire body. Someone knew, and they didn't want her to keep this baby. Suddenly, Jana's breath hitched. her body frozen as she stared at the shadowy figure standing just outside her window. The dim glow of the streetlight barely illuminated the outline of a tall, unmoving figure. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Who was that? Her fingers trembled as she reached for her phone, but before she could do anything, the figure tilted their heads slightly, as if they knew she was watching them. Then just as suddenly as they had appeared, they stepped back into the darkness, vanishing into the night. Jana's heart was a drum in her chest. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to run, to hide. She leaped from her bed, yanking the curtains shut, her breathing shallow and uneven. The messages, the figure. They're watching you. She grabbed her phone, hands shaking as she typed a message to Layla. Jana, someone was outside my window, and I just got these messages. I'm freaking out. Layla responded almost immediately. Layla. What? Lock your doors. I'm coming over. Jana barely had time to double-check the locks before headlights flashed through her front window. Within seconds, Layla was at her door, pounding urgently. Jana flung it open, throwing herself into her best friend's arms. Layla pulled her inside, shutting the door. Okay, tell me everything. Jana showed her the messages, her voice a whisper. I don't know who sent them. And then there was someone out there just standing there, watching me. Layla's face darkened. Do you think it's Alex? Or one of his idiot friends? Jana shook her head. I don't know, but something about this feels wrong. Layla hesitated. Do you think they're trying to scare you into doing something? Like not keeping the baby? Jana swallowed hard. That thought had crossed her mind, but she was too afraid to say it out loud. A loud bang outside made both girls jump. Jana grabbed Layla's arm, her fingers digging in. What was that? Layla inched toward the window, slowly pulling back the curtain. The street outside was empty. No figures, no movement. But then her gaze dropped to the porch. There, sitting right in the middle of the doormat, was a small envelope. Layla turned back to Jana, her face pale. Do you see that? Jana nodded, fear gripping her throat. Do we open it? Layla didn't hesitate. She unlocked the door, grabbed the envelope, and yanked it back inside. Jana's heart pounded as she watched her friend tear it open, pulling out a single sheet of paper. Her stomach dropped. The paper held only a foreword, written in messy, scrawled handwriting. Make the right choice. The next morning, Jana barely made it through her classes. Sleep had been impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those words. That figure, those unreadable text messages. She kept glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. But no one was there, at least not yet. During lunch, she sat with Layla, barely touching her food. You should report it, Layla muttered, spearing a piece of lettuce with her fork. And say what? Jana shot back. That I got creepy messages and someone left me a note? They tell me it's probably just a prank. Layla sighed. Then what are we supposed to do? Just wait until whoever is behind this makes another move. Jana didn't answer, because deep down, she knew this wasn't over, and she was right. That night, Jana was walking home from practice, her bag slung over her shoulder when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, heart hammering. No one. She started walking faster. The footsteps quickened. Jana's breath hitched. She was being followed. She reached for her phone, but before she could dial, a voice whispered, right behind her. You should listen to the warning, Jana. She spun around, eyes wide, but there was no one there. The street was empty, silent, but Jana knew what she had heard. And for the first time, she truly understood. Whoever was after her wasn't just trying to scare her. They wanted her gone. Jana's pulse pounded as she stood frozen on the sidewalk, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps. The street was empty, no signs of movement, no footsteps retreating, but she had heard it. Someone had whispered her name. She spun in circles, scanning every shadow, every parked car, every flickering streetlight. The cold air bit at her skin, but she barely noticed. She wasn't alone. Heart racing, she fumbled with her phone, her fingers barely able to hit the call button. Pick up, she whispered. Layla's voice came through the speaker. Jana, what's wrong? I think I think someone's following me, she choked out, gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Where are you? Walking home. A rustling sound behind her made her stop mid-sentence. She bolted. Her feet pounded against the pavement as she sprinted toward home, breath hitching, lungs burning. The weight of her backpack slowed her down, but she didn't dare stop. She could feel it. Someone was behind her, watching, chasing. Jana? Layla's panicked voice came from the phone, but Jana couldn't answer. She just ran. Her house came into view. She fumbled for her keys, hands shaking as she unlocked the door and slammed it shut behind her. She pressed her back against the wood, her breath ragged. Silence, then a shadow flickered past the window. Jana's stomach twisted. Someone was out there. Her phone was still clutched in her palm. Layla was shouting, Jana, talk to me. I'm home, she gasped. But someone's outside. I'm coming over, Layla said, no hesitation in her voice. Jana barely managed to nod before a mighty loud thud made her jump. The sound had come from the porch. She crept toward the window, her heart in her throat. The porch light flickered, casting eerie shadows over the front yard. Then she saw it, another envelope sitting right in front of her door. Just like last time. Jana's body went rigid. She wanted to run, to scream, but her feet felt rooted to the floor. She forced herself to move, to open the door just enough to grab the envelope before slamming it shut again. With shaking fingers, she tore it open. Inside was a single photograph. Her blood ran cold. It was a picture of her sleeping, taken from her inside her room. By the time Layla arrived, Jana was shaking so badly she could barely speak. Layla snatched the photo from her hands, her face going pale. This was taken inside your house? Jana nodded, arms wrapped around herself. Layla looked around the living room, suddenly alert. Jana, what if they're still here? A chill ran down Jana's spine. The house had been empty when she got home, hadn't it? She felt the hair on her arms rise. Layla grabbed a kitchen knife. We need to check the house. Jana swallowed hard and nodded. Together. They moved room by room. The living room, empty. The kitchen, empty. The hallway, a noise, a creak. From upstairs. Jana and Layla froze. Jana grabbed Layla's arm. Someone's here. They crept up the staircase, every step agonizingly slow. The air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on them. They reached Jana's bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. Layla gripped the knife tighter. On 3. Jana nodded, barely breathing. 1, 2, 3. Layla kicked the door open. The room was empty, but the window, it was wide open. Cold air rushed in, sending shivers down Jana's spine. She ran to the window, looking out, but the street below was empty. Whoever had been inside was already gone. Layla cursed under her breath. This is bad. This is really bad. Jana stared at her bed. The sheets were rumpled. The pillows had been moved. Someone had been in here, watching her while she slept, and they had left her a message. This wasn't just about scaring her anymore. This was a warning, and she had no idea who was behind it. The next morning, Jana didn't go to school. She couldn't. She sat on her bed, knees drawn to her chest, staring at the photograph. She had tried to tell herself this was some sick prank, that Haley or one of Alex's idiot friends was messing with her. But this was different. Who would break into her house? Who would get that close? And then another thought crept into her mind. What if this had nothing to do with Alex? Her phone vibrated, making her jump. A text from an unknown number. Did you get my message? Jana's stomach dropped. A second later, another text. This is your last warning. Her heart pounded. She quickly typed back. Jana, who are you? No response. Jana clenched her jaw. She wasn't going to sit around and wait for whoever this was to make the next move. She needed to figure out who was behind this. And she needed to do it fast. Because if she didn't, she had a terrifying feeling that next time, they wouldn't just leave a message. They'd do something much worse. Jana spent the rest of the day locked in her room, her mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that photograph. her own sleeping face captured from inside her house. Someone had been there. Someone had stood just feet away from her, watching, and now they were warning her. She needed answers. By evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed her phone and called Alex. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then finally, "What?" His voice was sharp, impatient. Jana clenched her teeth. "We need to talk." A pause. Then a scoff. "You're still on this? I told you." "Someone's been following me." Alex, her voice trembled despite her efforts to sound strong. "I've been getting messages. Notes. A picture of me sleeping was left at my house." Silence. "Alex?" He exhaled, something unreadable in his tone. "That's not my problem, Jana." Jana gripped the phone tighter. "Are you sure? Because I don't think this is a coincidence." Alex was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a low voice, he said, "I gotta go." And he hung up. Jana stared at her screen, fury and fear bubbling inside her. What the hell was he hiding? Later that night, Layla showed up at Jana's house, carrying a duffel bag. "I'm not letting you stay here alone," she announced, stepping inside before Jana could argue. "Whoever is doing this is serious." Jana sighed but didn't protest. Having Layla there made her feel a little safer. They stayed up late, going through every detail of the past few days, trying to make sense of it. "I don't think this is Alex," Jana muttered. This feels bigger." Layla frowned. "Who else would want to scare you?" Jana hesitated. "I don't know, but I think someone doesn't want me to keep this baby." Layla's expression darkened. "Then we need to find out who." It was past midnight when Jana finally drifted into an uneasy sleep. She woke up to the sound of her bedroom door creaking open. Her eyes snapped open, her body going rigid. The room was dark, but she could make out a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. For a moment she thought she was dreaming, but then the figure moved. She tried to scream, but a hand clamped over her mouth. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she struggled, her pulse a deafening roar in her ears. A voice, low, chilling, whispered in her ear, "You should have listened." Jana's vision blurred with panic. The grip on her tightened. Then, a crash. Layla's voice screaming. The figure let go. Jana fell back, gasping for air as Layla lunged at the intruder, swinging a lamp at them. The figure stumbled back, then turned and bolted out of the room. Jana scrambled after them, her body shaking as she ran to the front door. But by the time she got there, they were gone. Layla stood beside her, panting. "What the hell just happened?" Jana's hands were trembling so hard she could barely reach for her phone. This wasn't just a warning anymore. Someone had broken into her house. And next time, they might not let her go. Jana stood frozen at the doorway, her pulse hammering in her ears. The night was eerily silent, the wind rustling through the trees, but the presence of danger still lingered in the air. Layla slammed the door shut, locking it, her breath uneven. "This is insane, Jana." Jana turned to her, still shaken. "Someone was in my room, Layla. They were standing right there." She pointed to the dark hallway, her voice breaking. "I know. I saw them." Layla's hands trembled as she gripped the lamp she had used to strike the intruder. "I hit them hard. There should be some kind of trail, blood, something." Jana hesitated, but then nodded. "We need to check." Slowly they made their way back to the hallway. The floor creaked under their cautious steps. Layla flipped the light switch, and the dim glow illuminated the space. Jana sucked in a sharp breath. There, on the floor, were small drops of blood. Leading toward the window, Layla's eyes widened. "I knew it. I hit them." Jana's stomach twisted. Whoever had been there was injured, but instead of running through the front door, they had escaped through the window. She hurried to her bedroom, where the window still stood, partially open. The night air was cold against her skin as she leaned over, peering outside. The backyard was empty, but the fence had been slightly pushed forward, as if someone had climbed over it. "They planned this," Jana whispered. "They knew exactly how to get in and out." Layla grabbed Jana's arm. "Jana, this is serious. We have to go to the police." Jana hesitated, fear curling around her chest. Would they even believe her? But before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A new message. Current number. I warned you. Now you'll have to face the consequences. Jana's breath hitched. Layla looked over her shoulder and cursed. That's it. I'm calling 911. She grabbed her phone and started dialing. But before the call could go through, Jana's screen lit up again. Unknown number. Go to the police, and you'll regret it. Jana's fingers curled around her phone. They're watching us. Layla's face was pale. How do they always know what we're doing? Jana swallowed hard. The messages, the break-in, the photograph. Someone was one step ahead of her, and now they were making sure she knew it. The next morning, Jana barely made it to school. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that shadowy figure standing in her doorway. As she walked down the hallway, whispers followed her. She looks awful. I heard she got knocked up. I bet Alex dumped her. She ignored them, her focus locked on one person. Alex. He was at his locker, laughing with his friends like nothing had happened. Jana's hands clenched into fists. Enough was enough. She stormed up to him, shoving his shoulder. We need to talk. Now. Alex barely glanced at her. Not interested. Jana grabbed his wrist. I'm not asking. His friend snickered, but Alex sighed and followed her outside to the edge of the parking lot. Jana turned to face him, anger burning in her chest. Tell me the truth, Alex. Are you the one behind this? Alex frowned. Behind what? Jana pulled out her phone, shoving the messages in his face. The threats, the break-in, the notes telling me to make the right choice. For the first time, Alex's face darkened. His jaw tightened. What? Someone was in my house last night, Alex. Jana's voice wavered. I need to know if it was you. Alex's hands curled into fists. Are you serious right now? Jana glared at him. You're the one who didn't want anything to do with this baby. You're the one who abandoned me. Alex exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, I said some messed up things, but I wouldn't. He stopped, his brows knitting together. Jana noticed the shift in his expression. What? Alex hesitated. You said they left you a picture of you sleeping? Jana nodded. Alex's face paled. Jana, he said slowly, that's the same thing that happened to my mom before she disappeared. Jana's breath caught. What? Alex looked around nervously before lowering his voice. When I was a kid, my mom got these weird messages, notes, threats, and then one day she was just gone. Jana's stomach twisted. You never told anyone? Alex shook his head. My dad told me never to talk about it. He said it was better that way. Jana's heart pounded. Alex, what if this isn't just about me? What if it's about your family? Alex swallowed hard. Then we're both in trouble. Later that night, Jana and Layla met up with Alex at a diner outside of town. The tension between them was thick, but there was no time for old grudges. Alex leaned in, keeping his voice low. My dad's always been secretive, controlling, and I found something a while ago, something that never made sense until now. Jana frowned. What? Alex pulled a crumpled photograph from his jacket pocket and slid it across the table. Jana and Layla leaned in. The picture showed a young woman, pregnant, standing outside what looked like a hospital. Jana's blood ran cold. Who is she? Alex's eyes met hers. That's my mom, right before she disappeared. Jana's breath hitched. Layla pointed at the back of the photo, where something had been written in faded ink. Make the right choice. Jana's entire body went rigid, the same words that had been left on her doorstep. Layla looked between them, her face pale. Jana, I don't think you're the first girl this has happened to. Jana's hands trembled. The pieces were falling into place, and the truth was even more terrifying than she could have imagined. Someone had done this before, and if she didn't figure out who, she might be next. Jana thought her biggest challenge was dealing with an unplanned pregnancy, but now she's entangled in a dark mystery far more terrifying. The messages, the break-in, the shadowy figure, none of it was random. Someone has been watching her, someone who has done this before. And now with Alex revealing the eerie connection to his mother's disappearance, one thing is clear. Jana is in more danger than she ever imagined. Who is behind the threats? What really happened to Alex's mom? And most importantly, will Jana survive long enough to find out the truth? If you want to see what happens next, don't forget to like, comment, and follow so you don't miss your part 2.